Okay, we are live. So there's no this is a very simple. I mean, any Tom Dick Harry can just do this search on Google Patterns. So if we go through this search inquiry, this is basically retrieving a data set where it talks about, even for the matter of fact, the word blockchain. When was it used? It was used in a German patent application. So it's DE 1858. And if I go to the legal status, obviously, this is a very old application. And now the e-space, that is basically the EPO, basic is, I mean, it's not the way it used to be. Now you have to register yourself and then you can search the stuff. Let's see if we are able to get that. Anyhow, so one of the earliest applications relates to a device which is intended to be used by a machine for printing and issuing tickets to control operation carried out and register. The present device, and I will give you this data also just for the understanding, because the ethos of blockchain, I mean, the framework always is, we have to take out the mediators, and it has to reach from one node to the other node without any interference. That is the ethos of the framework of how a blockchain has to work. I mean, whatever the world is doing in terms of, these uh, different meme coins, this coin, that coin, this is only a way and a means to garner users and build stuff, maybe in the online world or in the offline world, and use that data to build another stuff. A very good example would be the ride hailing services. For the longest time, uh, all these ride hailing services, irrespective of the fact where the investment was coming in, at least the earlier government, I can talk about Delhi, I'm not getting into the data set of other NCR places because I don't travel to those places. So it's just the periphery of New Delhi. Delhi obviously is, I mean, of course, it can be divided into subsets, but generally it's called as East, West, South, North, and Central Delhi. That's how Delhi is. So you will see a lot of nomenclature of numbers everywhere. And you will see a lot of intellectual players in terms of the cab drivers. They have a camera on their dashboard to record, which is a good thing. I mean, the other day I met someone, that driver had deployed this camera on the dashboard and was recording everything. So, say for example, these people who are claiming to be Delhi police, they might not be police. It's just they're wearing uniforms, because late at night you never know what's happening on the roads, and it's happening in Delhi NCR also. That being said, so a lot of allocation of numbers were there on the poles and everything, and then these ride hailing services were like, you know, till 1,000 rupees you can just uh, book the cabs. There was escalation of prices and so much, because the ethos with which they started, they couldn't uh, run that. I mean, for any business model to work, first is always not the vision statement, it is the problem statement. Problems. What is the problem statement we're trying to solve? And in these ride hailing services, when I noted that, the user's mobile number, that is the mobile number allocated by any of these telcos, the last four digits were static. So it was very clear. I mean, maybe in one of my videos earlier, maybe in some years before, I said, let's consider four-letter word. I mean, that was not the intent. It was just a discussion. It was not even a use case study. I don't know why folks don't understand that technology is never limited by numbers. Technology will never be limited by numbers, and technology is nothing to do with zero and ones. What I have shared here is today I was going through a data set, and this is in context with India because the AI robots are working wonderfully in the online world, and they always give me a red flag when I have to, and then I review the data set. I'm not, online at any given point of time. I'm doing my reading, I'm doing my stuff. I have a lot of offline things which I need to tackle. So in this particular case, what happened was it was Blinkit. Now Blinkit, I think, is in association with Zomato, if I'm not wrong. I may be wrong also. I'm not getting into that. But this influencer was actually, his each move was kind of a code. And then he said, I used a lock which is Link. And yesterday I was just going through it because I'm seeing a lot of people playing around with locks and keys. um, Blockchain has nothing to do with keys and the blocks. Now why I say so, because way back somewhere in 2011 I handled one litigation matter before the High Court, which was around locks and keys. And for that, the client had paid 10,000 rupees, and there was a lot of, there were a lot of actors around when this was enacted. And I was like, why I am part of this? Anyhow, that being said, so that is a High Court case. So my name is registered with that. And I was like, why my name is being dragged in this case? I don't even know this person. Then another data set of lock and keys is like the places where these are manufactured. If I talk about India and GI particularly, Indore is very famous for locks and keys. I mean, the manufacturing hub in Indore is particularly famous for locks and keys. Aligarh is very famous for locks and keys. I mean, in the manufacturing field. However, trying to malafide with a malafide intention, if anybody, maybe it is a cohort of folks, because here lawyers are involved, the Indian patent agents are involved, the police is involved, the whole judiciary is involved, technology people are involved. So you can understand the kind of malice people are playing just to create a blockchain out of nothing. That is not technology at the first instance. Secondly, can you believe that just these locks are being pushed by these influencers? When this influencer particularly said, I'm buying this Link, I mean, then I was like, again, four letter word. Now, do you think English letters can create a technology? The answer is big no. Do you think English letter A to Z can create a blockchain? The answer is big no. Blockchain is nothing to do with this kind of coding. That is point number one. Whatever is being coded, whatever blocks we are creating, we are identifying the problem statement. That is point number one. We are identifying the bad actors, and those are being reported not only in real time. There are times where they are reported beforehand. Now it is up to the Indian government or the international agencies, which includes Interpol, which includes ITU, that is International Telecommunication Union, because communication itself cannot be misused. If the communication is being misused to push out data points where the data is being utilized to kill individuals, families, and all these nonsense, this cannot be part of the protocol. And that has to be reported. Now it has come to the notice, if you go through these patent applications, which are particularly, one is before the patent offices, which are not even published, because something which is provisional, that is never published. So the scrutiny is happening. If you go to the Indian patent office website, you will clearly see that, the digital signatures are not working, and so on and so forth. Now, this is one aspect, that is the patenting aspect. So intellectual property rights has a lot of aspects, and I'll try and cover it in the shortest possible time, because there's no point even, going through these applications, because this is just a URL is just a resource locator on this portal or the canvas or whatever you want to call it. Because in the patenting language, in the copyright language, you can be your own lexicographer. When I say that, I think for the longest time I have been drafting patterns. I think somewhere way back in my 90s, I drafted my first pattern. Nobody knows about it because That was taught to me by my relatives. And when I was going through the data set, I realized, okay, this is something I would like to pursue if I want to in the near future. That being said, let's come back to this whole understanding of different chains, whether it's Ethereum, whether it's um, now just imagine I'm getting an international call. So all these international calls are just a facade. Don't pick up these international calls. Anyhow, the point of contention here is blockchain has nothing to do with locks and keys. Please stop using that as a code to code anything. Trademarking and everything can never be part of the blockchain, because the ethos of blockchain is, first of all, the transfer has to happen from one end to the other end, and the three trinity stuff has been discussed. And in very simple words, until unless there is honesty, there is trust, there's a product, the product has to be ready. The product has to be ready so that the onboarding can be done. I mean, for my own product, I'm doing my onboarding myself. Even the subscribers who are being onboarded, they are coming up with, we have a lot of smart contracts in place even before we onboard anyone. We are not looking here to, have first 100 subscribers, 1,000 subscribers. That's not how Impula is going to work, because Impula is much more. People are talking about the edge technology. Yes, I wrote the patent application, I know about it, but a part of the application belongs to Aha Telecom, and they are, these are the players who are based out in US. Elon Musk is involved. There's another nexus of individuals who are techies. So that is their game. I'm part of their CSO plan. That's good enough. But this Impula thing is my own baby, in terms of, not only it caters to 6G, it caters to 7G, 8G, or whatever generative stuff you can think of. Now you cannot block this and say, okay, we are not going to allow her to, function like that. If you don't allow me to function like that, it's very evident that whatever I filed all over these years, or whatever I have written all over these years, they are null and void. And if that becomes null and void, the whole economy of intellectual property rights go back to, I don't know which year, because uh, authentically it's next to impossible, but that's the truth. And another state where, intellectual property rights has a lot of value is Kanpur. I mean, again, Kanpur is a state where a lot of manufacturing is done. However, people in European Union had identified this particular person, and his entry is banned in those countries. I mean, he cannot even travel, because what folks have been doing is they bring the machine to India, whatever the machine is, dismantle it, file a patent, and then they say we have IPR, raise funds from the government, like as an MSME or whatever, and then start creating ruckus. So intellectual property rights is not abided in a lot of ways. But at the same point of time, India has a lot of traditional knowledge. India has a lot of GI. India has a lot of good things. So we have to consider on the good part and leave this concept of blockchain and all these exchanges and everything. We need to settle down with something which is more transparent and which gives the users, at least for others, because Impala will never allow the subscribers to subscribe to Impala network, because Impala works on a very different format. And the onboarding process is also very different. That's not written in the patent application. Maybe whatever they think they can think of, but I'm not associated with that kind of subscription. Yes, for the others where normal way of subscription is there, and where I'm the CSO of couple of good ICOs and stuff, I'm happy to work in that regard. But the Impola stuff is very much, I would say, it's the ethos with which we work, and it's itself. I wouldn't say it's a pivotal role, because again, people will use the word pivot and then give some formulation. They will say, okay, वो किताब निकालो, ये किताब निकालो. किताबों से कुछ नहीं होता. Intellectual property is much more than what normal people can comprehend, and particularly people from all these colleges and all professors and all, because uh, sitting behind the bench and just doing the blackboard work for their most of their life will never understand what reality is all about. You have to be there in that particular scenario to uh, see for your own self how the other actors are behaving. And let me tell you, I have been doing it since my birth. I have been observing everything. And when I started coding with that ethos that, okay, these are my problem statements. Why don't I, solve those problems first? And that's how I started my coding process. And at each point I knew, these are the bad players, whether it was my school, whether it was my college, whether it was my colleagues, whether it's my clients. Each client has taught me that, what not to do. I don't have any real clients because all have been dummy clients, because I never met anyone. I never saw some faces also, but I just work on those applications because I felt that I will learn something, because my learning curve has to be very high, and that's how I am what I am today. Thank you for watching out the video. I think this gives a little bit clarity as to what chain is all about. There's nothing chain, or I can just replicate everything, and I can just bombard different on chains on the internet, but it's not going to solve any problem. So the problem statement still remains. What are we trying to solve? That is a sustainability goal, and it's like going carbon negative is something I want to focus on. Thank you for watching out the video. Have a great day ahead.